After a one-week hiatus due to the bye week, the panel returns. Panel brought to you by Sport Chek. Of course, Tom Gazzola with Bob Stauffer and Jack Michaels from the Oilers Radio Network. Gentlemen, the Oilers went into the bye week riding high after a big win over the Vegas Golden Knights, an important win over the Coyotes. They followed up with a win over the Canucks, and then we see what we see against the Buffalo Sabres. Stauf, where do we even start with that one?
Well, that's sort of an open-ended question, isn't it? I think anything that needs to be said about the game on Tuesday night in Edmonton against Buffalo was probably said and not said by Todd McLellan following last night's game. Obviously, special teams, power play continuing to lose momentum for the hockey club during the course of games. And then the penalty kill, which to me remains one of the biggest conundrums I've ever seen in my life, how a team could have the best penalty killing in the NHL on the road and the horrifically worst penalty killing we've seen in NHL history to this point at home. It's kind of flabbergasting, but then it manifests to other points in the game. The team loses confidence. I don't think that their stick-togetherness has been as good as last year. And the end result is they're struggling specifically at home. They've played with much greater consistency on the road, and a large part of that has been special teams.
Jack, yeah, I mean, the special teams have been pretty bad of late, but again, no consistency. The consistent part of the team's game this year is that they're inconsistent, can't ride a wave of momentum.
Well, and that's what Todd McLellan has been getting at the last couple of weeks. He's talking about legitimate playoff contenders like Colorado and Calgary putting together a point streak of 9 and 10 games. Colorado just had a 10-game winning streak snapped. Calgary at this point, points in 9 straight, 7-0-2. And when you win 4 in a row, heading into the Christmas break, when you win 3 in a row, going into the bye week and coming out of the bye week with a strong performance against Vancouver, you can't give it back, especially when you've already relinquished some runway in the first 2/3 of the season. Now you're down to the last third, and the Buffalo game no longer can just be classified as a one-off because you don't have any one-offs left. And that's the grim reality facing this year's Edmonton squad, is they're running out of runway. They've now got to put together a streak of 8, 9, 10 in a row uninterrupted. That's the only way they're going to catch up. And when you toss in a performance like Buffalo, it completely wipes away all the momentum you were just talking about.
All right, some other interesting news when it comes to the Oilers this week. Bob, I know you talked about it on your show, but Paul Coffey rejoins the organization as a skills development coach. What do you make of that move?
Well, I certainly understand a lot of the different perspectives on it that are out there. And unfortunately, when your team is struggling, and the Oilers have struggled this year, that at times lends itself to some criticism. I will say this. The Oilers have a lot of young developing defensemen in the American Hockey League that are important in terms of moving forward. And I think that we've seen a little bit, certainly with the forwards and the lack of forward depth in the organization, the challenges that come with that. Conversely, it's incumbent upon Edmonton to bring some guys along. So, and the Oilers have got some young defensemen here, frankly, some of whom are struggling. So if Paul Coffey can come in and assist Jim Johnson in helping players like Matt Benning and Oscar Klefbom, for that matter, even Adam Larson, find another step. And then in the minors, with the potential emergence down the road of an Ethan Bear or Caleb Jones or Ryan Matha, it could be a very successful venture. So let's see how this thing goes.
Some of the criticism is they've brought in another old Oiler. I think that's missing the point. What I think they've done here is brought in the defenseman that was the type of player they'd like in this modern era's game. In other words, not a stay-at-home guy. Paul Coffey was high-risk, high-reward defenseman who's a Hall of Famer, but more to the point, his philosophy of playing and coaching defense mirrors what Peter Chiarelli wants out of his defense moving forward. Not just a guy who can take care of business in their own zone, but can join the attack and help create a 5-man unit instead of just relying on the 3 forwards. So ultimately, with transitioning the puck so essential to today's game, I think that's why they bring in Paul Coffey as much as his Oiler ties as anything else.
You know what else I found interesting about the Paul Coffey hire is Todd McLellan spoke about skills coaches and how some guys are going out and hiring a guy like Adam Oates. Is this kind of categorized as Edmonton's own Adam Oates type situation? Is that fair, or is this different?
I think anyone who watched Paul Coffey play for 2 decades in the NHL knows he's as skilled as they come, and also it's the mentality, Tom. I think that's the key, is having that instinct of being a defenseman, not on your heels, but on your toes at all times.
Okay, really quickly, before we go into yet another break in this schedule, which has been a little bit weird, the Flames, before the Oilers head into the All-Star break. Quick tee up here.
Well, I think we've talked about it. I mean, you've now relinquished the 2 points that seemed a certainty against Buffalo. You got to get them back against Calgary. You can't go into the break with 2 deflating home defeats and expect to come out of the break with 2 pretty tough games against Colorado and Tampa Bay. I mean, those are 2 teams that you'd have to put in the top 10 of the NHL right now. Colorado based on recent results, and Tampa Bay based on a body of work over the course of the year, although the Lightning are starting to get nicked up. So you got to have Thursday's game. You've won 6 in a row against Calgary. Don't give that back, as Todd McLellan has suggested.
I was more worried about the game against Buffalo and Calgary. The Oilers' engagement level throughout the last 2 seasons against the Flames has been there. I expect a physical and boisterous Edmonton Oilers hockey team against the Flames on Thursday night.
All right, so the Oilers will look to bounce back from 5-0 defeat at the hands of the Buffalo Sabres Thursday night against the Calgary Flames. As always, Jack and Bob have the call for you on 6:30. Ched, I got you covered right here on EdmontonOilers.com.